The battlefield was supposed to swallow that lone Ukrainian tank. Dozens of Russian armored vehicles pushed toward it like a tidal wave of steel, expecting one crew to panic, to run, to break. Instead, that tank dug in and prepared to fight a war no one survives alone. When the first Russian vehicle entered its sights, the crew turned the ambush into a massacre. One shot, then another. Then an entire column collapsed in confusion as the easy target began tearing their advance apart. What followed was jaw-dropping. A single tank stood against an army and forced it to retreat in fear. The two Ukrainian tanks sat buried in the landscape like predators waiting for the flicker of prey. Above them, a drone hovered in absolute silence, feeding every shift, every engine hum, every shadow of Russian armor crawling toward the kill zone. Then, the first Russian vehicle crossed the line. The Ukrainian gunner tightened his grip, and the cannon roared. The target erupted in a sheet of fire. Before the wreck even settled, the second shot followed, then a third. Each one punched through steel and sent flames twisting into the wind. One Russian soldier crawled out and ran, the only man still alive in a place that had become a furnace. Farther down the tree line, another Russian tank pushed forward, still believing it was the hunter. It wasn't. The Ukrainian crew had been waiting for that exact angle. The turret rotated. Crosshair locked. The shell flew clean and hard. The Russian tank didn't survive long enough to understand what hit it. The Russians panicked and fired back. Anti-tank missiles launched blindly, screaming across the air. One slammed into the dirt, another clipped a tree, while the other spiraled off course. They weren't firing at a tank, but at ghosts. The Ukrainian crew reversed, repositioned, and disappeared behind cover as if the earth itself swallowed them. This was the moment Russia realized the ambush had already won. The first Russian tank tried to answer the ambush with an ATGM team hidden behind the tree line. They fired fast, hoping surprise would save them, but the missile never came close. It slammed into the dirt, spraying the field with dust instead of danger. The Ukrainian crew didn't stop to celebrate. They reversed out of the blast zone, while the next Russian shot ripped through the branches above them, missing by meters. Then the living danger rolled in. A full armored column grinding forward like it believed momentum alone could crush the defenders. Dozens of tanks and APCs pushed through the smoke, engines roaring, crews convinced that numbers would drown the ambush in steel. Ukrainian artillery struck first to slow the advance. Those hit the column with enough force to scatter its formation, but not enough to break it. That job fell to a single Ukrainian tank, which held a narrow choke point. The crew backed into the shadow of a building and waited for the first target to appear in the open. Their opening round was missed, but they didn't hesitate. They reloaded with practiced speed, fired again, and watched the Russian vehicle erupt into flames. Confusion rippled through the convoy as they searched for the shooter, whom they couldn't see. Every time another silhouette moved into that narrow line of fire, another explosion tore apart the column. The defenders were outnumbered, outgunned, and boxed in, but they refused to give the Russians a clean fight. Their shots were deliberate and merciless. The field that was supposed to be Russia's advantage turned into a killing ground, where every advance ended in smoke, fire, and a crew climbing out of a burning hatch with no idea how they were being destroyed. The ambush turned into a hunt, and the hunters were Ukrainian. The Russian convoy kept pushing forward, convinced that sheer numbers would crush anything standing in its way. Their vehicles rolled in a tight column, engines thundering across the village road as if nothing could touch them. But a Ukrainian tank crew had already taken position behind a shattered building, watching through a narrow slit of rubble. They waited, steady and silent, letting the enemy drift deeper into the trap. The first Russian vehicle appeared, crawling into view. The Ukrainian gunner squeezed the trigger. The rounds screamed downrange and tore into the hull. Fire blasted out of every opening, throwing debris into the air and sending the convoy into panic. The Russians tried to respond, firing blindly into smoke and shadows, but they still couldn't find who was killing them. Another Russian vehicle pushed forward, hoping to break the ambush with speed. The Ukrainian tank reloaded in seconds and fired again. The second hit landed with brutal precision, ripping the vehicle apart. What remained burned in the middle of the road, blocking the entire column behind it. Some Russian crews tried to reverse. Others tried to push through the flames. None of it worked. Every time a silhouette crossed the tank's line of sight, the Ukrainian crew answered with another round. Each shot shook the street. Each blast carved the convoy apart. One tank, one crew, holding a road that should have belonged to the Russians. When the smoke settled, the convoy was bleeding. Now tell us, if you were that Ukrainian crew watching dozens of enemy vehicles roll toward you, would you hold the line or fall back to fight another day? Drop your call in the comments. The battle didn't slow down, it shifted. After the convoy was shattered on the road, Russia threw in heavier armor. They were hoping brute force could do what numbers couldn't. Ukrainian crews braced themselves. These were tank-on-tank duels, violent, close range, and unforgiving. A Leopard tank rolled into position first, slipping behind a ridge and watching a Russian formation edge forward. The Russians thought they had space to regroup, but they were wrong. The Leopard's cannon thundered, landing a single perfect hit that turned the lead tank into a fireball. The blast scattered the formation instantly, crews scrambling to reverse, to angle their armor, to meet a threat they still couldn't see. But the Ukrainian gunners weren't done. Another tank entered the kill zone. The Leopard fired again, one clean strike that ripped through the armor and sent flames pouring out of the hatches. The Russian advance collapsed before it even reached the front line. On another flank, a Ukrainian tank lay waiting in ambush, its crew motionless inside a burned-out structure, barely holding itself upright. A Russian tank rolled closer, slow and confident, believing it had the advantage. The Ukrainian tank did not move until the exact moment the enemy's flank aligned with its sights. Then the cannon fired, and the Russian tank folded inward, flames swallowing its turret in seconds. Other Russian vehicles tried to rush the position. An APC made the fatal mistake of showing its side profile for one heartbeat, enough for the Ukrainian gunner to lock on and destroy it with a precise shot. Metal twisted, fire spread. The vehicle's crew fled the wreckage in panic. Further up the line, another Ukrainian tank advanced to intercept yet another assault group. The first shot set a Russian vehicle ablaze. The second destroyed another armored carrier. By the third strike, the Russian formation had completely lost cohesion. Their advance dissolved into smoke, fire, and retreating silhouettes who no longer wanted to press forward. Each duel felt less like a battle and more like an execution. Ukrainian crews fought with calm, cold precision, as if they were carving through the battlefield piece by piece. Russia threw armor into the fight. Ukraine destroyed it. And all the while, the defenders kept moving, repositioning, slipping into new ambush angles the moment the smoke covered their tracks. Every shot landed where it needed to. Every round broke another vehicle. The battlefield Russia expected to dominate became a scrapyard of burning tanks with shattered APCs and crews running for safety. The battleground should have quieted after the duels, but instead, it became meaner, louder, and more unpredictable. Russia threw in everything it had left: stragglers from the shattered convoy, desperate armor crews, lone APCs hunting revenge, and tanks trying to flank from every direction. They believed the mess would overwhelm the Ukrainian defenders, but it worked both ways, and Ukraine had crews who knew how to kill inside it. On the outskirts of a ruined hamlet, a Ukrainian tank crawled from behind a collapsed barn. The crew reloaded, reset, and prepared for yet another wave. A Russian APC barreled toward them, firing wildly as it closed the distance. The Ukrainians held fire, letting the enemy get close enough to think victory was within reach. Then the cannon snapped forward and delivered a single brutal hit that tore the APC apart and sent its turret flying into the grass. Nearby, another Ukrainian unit fought using a captured Russian tank, one they had repaired just enough to bring back to life. From a distance, it looked like friendly armor to the Russians, which proved fatal. An enemy carrier rolled straight toward it, assuming safe passage. The Ukrainian crew waited until it was almost close enough to touch, then fired point blank. The carrier didn't survive long enough for anyone inside to understand why the friendly tank had turned on them. But the most violent clash came hours later, when Russia tried a final armored push. A T-series tank growled through smoke. The Ukrainian defenders saw it first. The Russian crew fired, missed, and tried to recover, too late. The Ukrainian tank placed a perfect round right through the hull, and flames burst from the driver's hatch like a furnace opening. Still, the crew fired again. He refused to die silently. The Ukrainians answered with a second round, then a third, until the machine stopped moving and the fire swallowed it whole. Then came the moment no crew ever forgets. A Russian tank ambushed the Ukrainians at a distance so close that even the gunners gasped. 20 meters, no time to think, and absolutely no room to maneuver. The Russians fired first and missed by a heartbeat. The Ukrainian cannon thundered back instantly. The shell hit so hard that the shockwave punched dust off the walls around it. The Russian tank detonated. From another angle, the explosion looked like the turret tried to escape straight into the sky. The dream of a Russian breakthrough died right there. Across the fields, Ukrainian drones hunted survivors trying to retreat. One FPV chased a damaged tank limping through smoke, but luck, just luck, saved it as it slipped behind a ridge. It didn't matter. The assault was finished. Every remaining vehicle either burned, surrendered, or fled under smoke screens thrown in panic. By the time the Ukrainian tanks rolled back towards safety, their armor was dented, scorched, and shaking from recoil. But they were alive. They had held the road. They had beaten overwhelming numbers, and they had done it with discipline, patience, and the kind of resolve no artillery map can measure. A single Ukrainian tank crew can stop an armored army if they decide the line will not break. When the smoke cleared, the field was filled with burning armor and silence that Russia couldn't explain. If you want the breakdown of the next impossible stand, hit subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments which moment proved to you that Ukraine refuses to break.